to have this. It's one of my personal favorites because it's always evolving trends, challenges, changes, ages. So here within San Mateo County, we are considered on a little seasoned side of life. About 1 in 4 of our residents are going to be over the age of 65 in less than a decade. Why is that? Our baby boomers will be at least 65 by 2030, and boomers are the second biggest generation next to millennials. On top of that, we're going to be seeing people over the age of 85 living longer, which is great. But it's really important to talk about how we keep our older adults safe. Really quickly, just want to give you guys some information regarding my department and why this is actually important. So when it comes to adult protective services, elder financial abuse is a category for adults when it comes to abuse categories. Keep in mind, financial abuse is a category, like I mentioned. My agency investigates any concerns regarding neglect or abuse of elders and dependent adults who are independent. You can live in a multi-generational home, apartment, house, whatever the situation is, as long as you're independent, any concerns of your safety will come through my department of APS. Keep in mind, California changed definition of an older adult to now 60 and up. That became effective January 1st. This is specific for services. That does not mean every single department changed its age definition. Really quickly, a lot of folks aren't aware, but APS, what we call ourselves for short, at Adult Protective Services, is 100% voluntary. So it is voluntary for folks being investigated to want to cooperate or not. There's no penalties if this person chooses not to. We always cross-report any type of criminal activity to the police, but other than that, as independent adults, we respect your opinion if you choose to engage or not, because we respect self-determination. Social workers can petition for conservatorship if we have some concerns regarding safety and capacity. Just know that's the end of the road. We're all about supporting independence for our older adults. So I'm just going to transition, like I mentioned, for APS. Financial abuse is a category, and we're going to start talking about what are some signs to watch out for. Well, typically it starts with unusual financial activity. A lot of older adults are on fixed incomes. And well, at this point in life, we know what we like to eat at the grocery store. We typically can assume our PG&E bills and so forth. So bills are usually very consistent. But if you started seeing these big changes, such as wire transfers, unpaid bills, maybe gifts or loans, that's sometimes, hey, red flag, what's going on? Also, new names on accounts. Who are these folks? Now, keep in mind, there's fabulous caretakers, but there's also going to be a number of people who will try to manipulate people through financial abuse. For instance, what if the gardener's name was on the power of attorney? This was a case here for us within our county at APS. Also, we always recommend to update wills, titles, power of attorney every 10 years. We say because life changes. Maybe someone passed me, somebody we no longer have a relationship with. But what if all of a sudden there's quick changes, new names on the account, and new people who are taking over the wills or power of attorneys? One of the first red flags for dementia is unpaid bills. And so it could be a multitude of things if someone is like, oh, I thought I paid the water and I didn't. But it also could be somebody dependent on someone else financially and that person not paying the bills as they were requested to do. One big trend we do see, not huge in the county, but nationwide, is gifts or loans to people. And we're seeing this a lot through example, gift cards. I will explain more about that. But like I mentioned, large wire transfers, huge red flag to start looking, just to have a question. Hey, what's going on? Who are you sending this money to? So this information right here on this screen is actually by a FBI training with the banks. Keep in mind, banks are mandated reporters for older adults. A lot of folks aren't aware of that, but banks are. They're the eyes and ears when we're seeing older adults and dependent adults being scammed. We're not bankers, right? I don't see your checking account information, but they do. And by law, they have to report to us. So FBI, APS, banks, we are all allies. We're always constantly working with each other to give each other the newest updated information. And this was a huge takeaway from one of the trainings I attended. What I'm trying to state is scammers are getting extremely smart and they're understanding our unique differences when it comes to different generations. I'm a millennial, right? My experience is much different than my grandfather, who was like a World War II generation, which is different than my mom, who is a baby boomer generation. We're talking sometimes 60-year differences. So scammers are really starting to target us different. And here are some examples. 60 and up, number one, the most top trending scams currently, text scam, lottery sweepstakes, and impersonating individuals. 80 and up, lottery sweepstakes, government imposter. Keep in mind, the younger you are, the more likely you are to report. Interesting fact, millennials report the most. But as a millennial, I feel totally confident reporting because I also know I'm going to have a different experience. Let's kind of put two stories. I'm 40, a person's 80. We're both scammed from the same scam, right? We'll say we were both scammed by an Amazon tech scam. My friend group's going to tell me I'm dumb. I should have known better. The same for the 80-year-old. The difference as we get older is people start to question your capacity, your independence. And this is also very generational when it comes to pride and privacy, right? And so, like I mentioned, there's a lot of other barriers when people over that are older want to report being scammed because they're viewed a lot differently than younger individuals. 80 and up also tend to be a lot more victims of phone calls. This could be grandparent scam. This could be that annoying call that we were all getting about the IRS a few years ago. The older generation tends to pick up the phone more. I have a teenager. She barely answers my phone calls, and I don't even think her voicemail is set up. It's just scammers understanding our generational differences. Totally makes sense. So I'm just going to transition here into about 6 scams that we really do see here at the hotline. Like I mentioned, we investigate elder independent financial abuse if an individual is receptive to just seeking our services. And just know at APS, we're not long-term case carrying social workers. We're here to step in, see how we could support you if it's not connecting with legal aid, needing some maybe mental health assistance. After that, we step away because you're an independent adult and it's a voluntary program. Romance scams. Well, a number of us do know the traditional romance scam, and I'll be transparent, this really, really increased right after COVID. A lot of older adults were given the internet because we weren't able to see people and we figured out Zoom. I was probably like you, and I didn't even know what Zoom was until a pandemic happened. And overnight, I had to learn this new computer. But a computer is also a powerful device, and there's a lot of predators. So traditional romance scam, it's definitely took hold, and it still takes hold in every single age category. It's an individual trying to have a friendship or a romance that's usually online. Most of the time it's truly online. It can be on a cell phone too. And they'll meet people maybe Facebook Market, maybe you're on dating websites. It can even be a simple text message. Hi. Oh, hi. Oh, I got the wrong number. Oh, I'm sorry. And all of a sudden, 5 months later, you're still talking to this person that you've never met before. And so romance scams do what we see have a lot of military folks stealing identity. So there's a lot of times they're pretending to be someone that they are not. A lot of times you will see military's identity taken because it's really easy to say, oh, I'm deployed. Oh, I'm got to go to a training in Kentucky. I come from a military family, and definitely my cousin's visiting from the Army, and I haven't seen him in a couple of years. It is very easy to say, I can't see you because of X, Y, and Z. Um, Also, just note that this is usually an international scam. And so prosecution is much harder. It's a lot of grooming. Grooming is basically, it's not like, hey, I met you yesterday. Can I borrow $50,000? It's time. It's a lot of just getting to know you. Can I borrow money? But they might not even ask for money 5, 6 months down the road. So just keep in mind, anytime you have not met somebody and they ask for money, red flag, gift cards, wire transfers, cash, through the post office. This is usually red flags that this person might not be who they are. So really be cautious of that because identities can be taken. AI, artificial intelligence, is coming in to effect, and I will use a story in my next slide to kind of talk about what we're seeing here within our county. Grandparent scam, really popular. I do a lot of trainings in senior centers, retiree, Rotary associations, like you name it, library, I'm there. And every time I ask somebody, have you heard of the grandparent scam? I at least have one person. Easily more than one is typical, but yes, older adults, as I mentioned, are more susceptible to scams on the phone because they're more likely to answer the phone. And so a traditional grandparent scam is, hey, your grandchild's in jail and can you bail him out? Please don't tell anybody. He's super embarrassed. He only trusts you. Can you help? This can be somebody pretending to be bail bond. This could be somebody pretending to be the district attorney. They're really here to isolate you in fear, shake you up really quick and tell you not to tell anybody. Huge red flag in all scams, clear across the board, is someone tells you not to tell somebody. Red flag. But typically they don't necessarily use gender. I had a woman say, oh, they said grandsons and I only have granddaughters. They'll wait for you to say a name, hoping when you get this call, if you do receive it, your grandchild, oh my God, is it Michael? Then you just give, the scammer Michael's name. But we also do see that the scam is evolving. The new trend that we're seeing is you get a call, your grandchild has been in a car accident and injured a pregnant woman. The pregnant woman has agreed not to press charges as long as you pay her medical expenses. Grandparent pays. You might get a call a few hours later that the baby passed away and now the person needs more money. We did have an individual out of Hillsborough. This happened. She was just being an awesome grandparent, trying to support her grandkid. And the way she paid was really, really just creepy. The scammer had sent somebody to her house. She handed over the money, even though there's security with a mask and a hat. We couldn't see their face. And so she was scammed, but also scammed on her own property, which is just another layer of violation. So, like I mentioned, it could be your grandchild's in jail. It can be your grandchild was in a car accident. This also, when we were in the midst of COVID, was your grandchild traveled to internationally and is sick. Can you send money? He's really, really sick from COVID. And also, it can be your grandchild traveled international and was held hostage for ransom. And now, can you send money? Just keep in mind, all of these majority of these scams are international, but the next one's not. But the next one feels different. Family caregiver scams. One of the biggest challenges for me as a trainer is really having conversations with family that are protective of somebody who is financially abusing them. Probably most of us here know of somebody who lets their adult child live in the home and knows their adult child is taking money from them or not being the best supportive child they could be. But here at APS and legally, when it comes to, when it comes to us, we can only encourage mom to not let her son stay in her house and continue steal from her, but we cannot tell her how she can live her life and who can live in the house. Very big challenge, because this one is when somebody is familiar, a caregiver coming into your house, taking care of your loved one. It could be your nephew who you adore and you nearly raised, and you continually want to support him, but you also know he could be taking advantage. So a lot of times this is hard because I think folks have this notion that the boogeyman is this big scary monster, when in fact it could be from your own family. And as our social workers, there's a lot of barriers. Number one myth of APS is we do not remove people from their house. We cannot tell an adult what to do and what choices to make. We can encourage, but at the end of the day, it's their choice. Example, a social worker had a referral and it was for a caregiver, concerns regarding a caregiver stealing money from the family. Social worker went out. Family was like, she would never, ever do that to me. She takes excellent care of my mom, and I definitely trust her. Well, a week later, the family, after the meeting, something happened where the family started looking into their financial records and realized there was a lot of money missing. But these relationships are so unique because you're almost like in shock and like, oh my God, why would they ever do that? Turns out after a lot of digging that the caregiver scammed him out of $85,000. This person had been in their family for years. Unfortunately, we couldn't help recover because the caregiver spent the money at the casino. But think about the depression. Think about the anxiety about now hiring somebody new. Overnight, these folks lost a caregiver who was taking care of their parents. And so there's a lot to go on emotionally. And also, when you have been scammed, particularly speaking for older adults, there's also higher rates of suicide because it's such an embarrassment and a financial disaster for some people. Tech scam. And why would I mention that the baby boomers might be like targeted more than older adults? Well, a lot of the tech scam is on the computer, right? I have a government computer. And so if I need assistance with some problems on my computer, I pick up a phone number, I call somebody I've never met before, and they log into my computer and fix it. Well, I know my mom, who retired 2 years ago, was used to this relationship of calling IT department and they fix it. And so this is a lot more prevalent, for example, being like Amazon. I had a friend who retired about 10 years ago, and he was used to that call IT, they fix. Thought he was talking to Amazon to return something. And he said, well, the person asked to log into my computer. And I was like, okay, I've done it for so many years. Why would I not? Because he was trying to return an item. And then all of a sudden, he said the red flag happened when they asked for my bank account. They wanted to log my bank account password so that they made sure that that return was credited to his account. He's like, that's when I was like, oh my God, I think I'm getting scammed. Keep in mind, Amazon will never ask for your information, but tech scam can also be downloading software that you thought you were doing for all those pop-ups and those viruses as protection. It can be something as clicking on a link you weren't sure of, and in that split second, information from your computer is being extracted. I will give you guys some examples of that really quickly. I know there's probably smoke coming out your ears, but I'm trying to give as much information as possible. Sweepstakes, lottery, charity scam. Number one, if you didn't sign up for it, how can you win? Like, example, I'm going to win the lottery, watch, but I never actually buy a ticket. I can't win the lottery if I never buy the ticket. So just know, like, really keep an eye out for fees. Have any of us won a raffle and then all of a sudden they're like, you got to give me $100 before I give you the basket? Most of the time that doesn't happen. So they really are trying to gain your trust or claim a victory. Like I mentioned, if it's too good to be true, it usually is, and you can't win something you didn't sign up for. Cryptocurrency, this one is happening. So crypto has become a lot more prevalent. You see it a lot more places. It's at the ATM. There's ATM crypto. Your Wells Fargo app has crypto, Venmo. So this definitely has been occurring more.
Thank you.
It can be in two ways. It could be a bonus investment, like, hey, why don't you do crypto to make some money? It could be, oh, I'm in a romance and I make money. I don't need your money because I do it this way. Here's a love example that I'll give you really quickly. But really quickly, scammers can use romance as a lure, meaning we had a gentleman on the coast. He was in an online romance relationship with a woman that was supposedly in Canada, and she convinced him to transfer his stock market money to Bitcoin and then transfer his Bitcoin, which is a legit company, to an app that she uses. Keep in mind, crypto is the Wild West. There is no regulation. Typically, these scams feel different because they're technically not asking you for money. They're saying, I have my own money and I live this way. So would you like to make money like me? Because I don't need your money. I'm fine without you financially, which is much different than the traditional romance scam. Can I borrow? And keep in mind there are legit crypto companies and not legit. So basically, this woman, I say woman because we're not sure, sent him a link to the app that she uses, and then he ended up depositing his money into this app. What we did not know is that the scammer was manipulating the money because it was a fake app. Anytime he put money in, he always told her, so she would adjust the numbers. Got to a point where she froze it and he could not take his money out. And so he ended up losing $350,000 on this scam because he thought it was an investment. He thought it was secure. Also, this scam was used through AI. This person had video records of this woman and she looked real, but if you had to look really, really close to notice it was an AI, it was an artificial person. And so I kind of had to explain what that technology is looking like. Um, and so we do see video. I do know from concern of our community about the voice. So be cautious about what you upload online. Even if you're private on Facebook, it's really not that private. So if I'm having this conversation with you or saying, hey, Mary, how are you? That quick clip can be manipulated into sounding like I need something from you. So some stuff sounds creepy, but let's talk about tools, right? What if you got a call from your niece and all of a sudden your niece is like, hey, Auntie, can you send me $1,000 in gift cards? And you're like, my niece would never do that. This is so weird. I don't get it. This sounds like her. Well, people can manipulate voices, but they cannot manipulate our memory right now, hopefully ever. But if your intuition is giving you those red flags, like, I don't know what's up with this, ask your niece a specific question that only you two would know. An example could be as easy as, hey, niece, what's the name of your first dog? Like there's certain things in our lives, or hey, what's your dad's mom's name again? Something, whatever it is that can only connect you to you two. And if that person cannot answer that or other questions that are specific, red flag, your intuition is probably right. So like I mentioned, keep in mind people can utilize AI and your voice, but challenge them to a specific question that only that person can answer. Just keep in mind we say money meals, and so scammers are really asking to buy gift cards. We're seeing so much at this at our community. That's also why if you go to CVS and you buy something, it's giving flashing gift card warnings now. A lot of stores locally are only allowing $1,000 purchases, but it doesn't stop people. Sometimes and scammers will ask you to buy a gift card. They'll ask you the number and then the PIN, and then they steal that money from you, and you can't get reimbursed from it because you knowingly bought gift cards. So really, really keep mind of that. And also, like I mentioned, wire transfers. And if somebody all of a sudden sends you money and you're like, but, oh, I'm sorry, I sent in an accident. Can you send me that money back? We do see that sometimes. And you send the money back. What if it's like a bounce check? You are now responsible for that money. Keep in mind, don't have to worry about reading all this. I'm going to sum it up on the sake of time. This is just an example of an email that was sent out by our San Mateo Credit Union here within our county. They're just letting and reminding folks, be cautious of the calls and texts that you're receiving. Do not reveal any authentication codes or to help assist with accounts. Remember, if someone you think is assisting you, they will not ask you for the authentication code because they're trying to manipulate you. If the offer's too good to be true, it usually is. Don't give out PINs, passwords, but here's what we're seeing nationally and locally. You get a text message, and all of a sudden it says Bank of America Fraud Department, suspicious transaction. Please call this 1-800 number. You call that 1-800 number, you think you're talking to the bank. You're not talking to the bank. You might be talking to a scammer. And we had a person victimized by this. She said, but I thought it was the bank because they actually confirmed my bank account number. So she's like, why would I not thought that? The person on the phone who was a scammer said, your bank account has been compromised. We need to close it. And we need to wire transfer the money to open another checking account for you. Red flag? Wire transfer. Why would a bank need a wire transfer money to open another checking account for you? They wouldn't. What we're trying to really preach and educate is, if you're ever get like a text or have a concern, just flip over your debit card or your credit card and call that number directly. Also, if you want more assistance, go to the bank directly inside and talk to a branch teller. They can help assist you in any type of way that you need. So just keep in mind, this is also happening really quickly because I know my training's 45 minutes, but here's an example of a junk email. Keep in mind where it says from, it says Bank of America and then Comcast, blah, 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 blah. That's not real. Keep in mind also, a lot of our scammers are international, meaning English is typically not their first language. I get these kind of emails all the time in my junk email. And if you actually just sit here and look at it, you're going to see a number of typos. Member should be uppercase followed by a comma, right? Here's a little trick. You can actually hover over these what is it? This link right here, it says bankofamerica.com. See how there's that little pointer? Well, on our computer, we can put that pointer to face it, and it will, don't click, just hover over it. Just put it that little arrow, don't click a button. It will show you where that website is going. You're not going to Bank of America, you're going to bit.do/ blah, 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 blah. So even though it says that sign in to go to Bank of America, if you click on that, there's a split second, and then you go to Bank of America, that split second, they could be extracting some of your personal information. Because think about how many personal things you do online, from paying bills to seeing Social Security, like so much. Another one where I'm saying, don't have to sit here and read it all, but Amazon sends out emails to their customers as well. This was one I literally copied and pasted from Amazon. They're also saying, please be careful of installing apps and software. We don't ask you to do that when you're trying to get a refund or talk to customer service. exactly what happened to my friend who retired. That's what he was trying to do, was do a refund, and they're asking him to log into his computer. Amazon, the corporation, is telling you do not do that. They're also saying never pay over a phone. We will not ask you to provide payment information, including gift cards or over the phone. And always double check that you're talking to Amazon. It's really easy to Google and pick the first thing, but make sure you pick the correct one. Take your time. I thought I called the number ones. I thought it was calling Kaiser, and I got somebody who was like, "You want a gift card?" And I was like, "Woo, Kaiser never did that to me." Turned out I never called the right number. I don't know what I called. I was in a hurry. Take your time. Make sure you're calling the correct number. Also, just lastly, all of these that are listed, which I will go over really quickly, are red flags. We're seeing so many people victimized by telling them to pay with a gift card. So it's a red flag if the IRS calls you and asks to pay for a gift card. Social Security will not do that. Your PG&E and utilities will not do that. Tech support, exact example was Amazon. Family member in trouble, now you know. Grandparent scam. Military in need, no they don't. They have so much stuff. That's what a care package is for, because they have everything they need and you're just giving them extra. I promise you, deployment, they have everything they need. Paying a bill, ransom, or also paying gift cards and you won't be arrested or deported. How do we kind of prevent that? Well, we're here, we're talking about it. Money's very taboo. Be suspicious. It's okay. We could be respectful and assertive and not disrespectful, but it's okay to be suspicious. As you now know, banks are mandated reporters, and roll-in identity protection plan is amazing. But there's a fee, and they're all different sites that you can see what works for you if you want to pay. Also, where to report: first, APS here locally. Like I mentioned, we always cross report to our police department. And lastly, I just listed a couple extra because these folks, FBI, Department of Justice, and so forth, are all allies to combat this scam. Here within San Mateo County, we do have a team called EDAPT, Elder Independent Adult Protection Team. What we are is a multidisciplinary team who communicate, who support older adults. We have 3 social workers who are deputy public guardians who investigate financial elder abuse cases. Keep in mind, it's voluntary. So we're always like doing outreach to let you know, hey, we're here to help you. We're not here to tell you how to live your life. We have 2 detectives at the district attorney's office who are our liaisons on top of investigating financial elder abuse cases. They're really complicated. Lastly, me, I do all of the outreach, all of the training, all of the communication for free. This is through Measure K funding that we passed 2016 in the county. Did forget our county attorney as well. So we act as a team because some challenges can be on a local city level. You might be a victim, go to the PD, they tell you it's a civil case. We can act as a liaison to see if it's a criminal case. And then if it is deemed a criminal case, our district attorney will work with the PD to make sure that the victim is supported and the PD builds a solid case for that victim. Not every county has this. Most of California does not have a protection team like this. And if they do, it might look different, but here in our county, that's how we support. Lastly, I'm going to just show a quick 4-minute video because I think it's really important for our community. There's a lot of value in our homes. For instance, my grandparents bought their house for $35,000 in the 1950s. Well, what if somebody was trying to take that house from them that's now worth over $1 million? It does happen. Oh, this is a police training video. So
Patricia King was a widow who was living alone in East Palo Alto. She was diagnosed with dementia. Miss King was 88 years old in 2008 when her niece, Miss Remmert, moved in with her. It was helpful to her at the outset to have her niece living with her because it was somebody to help her out around the house and keep her company. What she started to do was slowly consolidate her aunt's financial accounts, and she also had her aunt sign a quitclaim deed to her home, transferring ownership of the home from Miss King to Miss Remmert, the offender. Miss Remmert's cousins were becoming increasingly concerned about their aunt because of the isolation of Miss King that Miss Remmert was imposing. She was making it increasingly difficult for family members to come and visit.
Shirley began to isolate my aunt by becoming more limiting of the family and also of her friends and church members of coming to see my Aunt Pat.
Shirley Remmert had changed the locks on the exterior fence surrounding the home and had changed the locks on the home itself. So family members could no longer gain access to the home.
I had called my aunt and I let her know that I was coming.
I called the police.
Okay, all I want to do is see Auntie Pat.
I don't care.
And Shirley called the police and asked that the police remove me from the house.
There were multiple parties that made reports to Adult Protective Services expressing concern about Miss King's welfare. One of the reports came from the bank where she had a checking account. She went to the bank on 4 occasions, and she made 4 $10,000 withdrawals. The amount of those withdrawals, combined with how close in time they all were, caught the bank's attention, and Bank of America made a report to Adult Protective Services that these were suspicious transactions on an elder's account and asked Adult Protective Services to look into them.
A social worker who's described as a deputy public guardian who does just financial abuse cases became involved in the case because of the financial allegations.
They phoned Miss Remmert in advance and they made arrangements to meet up with her, with Miss Remmert, at Miss King's house. The deputy public guardian made the decision to reach out to the East Palo Alto Police Department and ask them please to send an officer as a civil standby to simply provide safety and make sure that things at the home went as smoothly as possible.
She kind of gave me a brief of who she was going to talk to and why she was going to talk to her. I knew we had something a little more than just a civil standby. She had some substantial evidence and information.
When they went to the residence, they found Shirley there with Aunt Pat. The deputy public guardian had a very pointed and direct conversation with Shirley about the nature of the financial improprieties that they were aware of based on Pat's financial documents. And Shirley was taken aback, to say the least.
Miss Remmert was nervous. She was inconsistent. At that point, she threw her hands up and said, I liquidated the money.
What?
It's in my room. And at that point, I escorted her to her bedroom. She then pulled out a box of money. In the end, after counting, it was about $80,400. Due to Miss Remmert's inconsistencies with her answers, and finally showing us the money that she did liquidate, I arrested her.
Most financial elder abuse investigations are complex, and we generally advise law enforcement to gather their evidence and then consult with the district attorney's office to see what the next steps are before taking a suspect into custody. But in this particular case, the fact that the quick-thinking East Palo Alto Police Department apprehended Miss Remmert on the spot was crucial to our ability to not only preserve the cash that was seized from the home, but also to freeze the home and execute a search warrant. And a tremendous amount of crucial documentary evidence was discovered. This document over here, it says quitclaim deed. When you signed this, did you believe that you were giving away your house?
Oh, no. I'm not giving away my house.
The fact that the victim of a crime has dementia shouldn't necessarily indicate to you that that person cannot be a witness, and an important witness in their own case. Do you want to continue to own your house until you die?
When I die, my people divide my house.
These are the kinds of cases that are nuanced. They typically involve very complex family dynamics that have taken decades to evolve and are only getting worse as time progresses. So if there's history with that family, Adult Protective Services will be able to provide that to you while you're in the field. And that situation that's in front of you that you're looking at is going to look really different through the lens of all of that information than it does when you're just standing on the porch with someone trying to figure out whose paperwork is more legitimate than whose.
At the end of the jury trial, Ms. Remmert was convicted of multiple felonies, and the trial judge sentenced her to 7 years and 4 months in the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. The cash that had been seized from the home was released back to the victim, and the judge signed an order voiding the deed and returning Ms. King's home to its rightful owner.
Just know that older adults are highly underreported. Here is our hotline if you ever feel that you need some assistance or want to make a report. We are also a resource hotline as well if you need resources. And also lastly, for in-home support services, if anybody wanted to access that or start an application, it's all the same number. So thank you for attending my training today. Like I mentioned, I will stay around if anybody does have questions, but this is our hotline. Like I mentioned, we're underreported. For every one referral we get, we miss 24, and this is nationwide. So everything is confidential. We do not disclose information. And so I definitely appreciate you guys being here to listen to my presentation.
Thank you so much, Cassie. That was very informative.
You're welcome.
You. One of the latest scams that I've seen recently, and I continue to get them, is texts regarding that Netflix account's going to be shut off unless you pay. And of course, I keep reporting it as junk and realize it's a scam, but a lot of people wouldn't realize it. So how would you protect yourself with that idea in mind, or your friends?
Well, I think number one is having conversations. Money is kind of taboo, but just really educating folks that, what if you are having these texts, to make sure you contact Netflix directly. But it's also educating each other that we're now seeing not just phone calls, but text messages in all different areas, of it's being the bank, if it's being the IRS, like you mentioned, Netflix, trying to fish people to steal money. And so just having those conversations. I know the phone companies do so much. I know I probably get like 10 scam phone calls a day. You guys probably are with me in the same boat, but really just being extra cautious to make sure that you are contacting directly the company.
Right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I can do copy the presentation. It will be in PDF. It's just the way the county is. I can't share PowerPoints to everyone, so you will miss the video. But I can send a PDF so that you guys could refer to it as well. And if you go to a fake website and if oh, hold on. I'm reading these as we speak. I've heard that if you go to a fake website, like impersonating a bank, and if you enter a password, even if you don't press enter, they already have your information. Sometimes this is true. And I will say that because there's been a number of data breaches. And when data breaches happen, we hear about it, but we don't know where that information is sent. We also know there is a dark web. So if you've been a victim once of a scam, you're 3 times more likely to be a victim again, because those scammers are selling your information. Like, hey, this guy was good. I got him out of 10,000. You want to try him? So just being very mindful, and especially if we're impersonating the bank, best suggestion, go just to the bank directly if that's something possible for you. Great question, though. My job is literally learning new scams every day. I've seen book scams. I didn't know that was a thing until a couple of months ago. Somebody was trying to write a book, and there's this whole scamming community for folks trying to write books. But as long as we're having these conversations, as long as we're keeping ourselves informed and giving ourselves tools. So like I mentioned, like the AI, when we're saying, hey, ask a certain question. I know for me, I pay personally for those data protections. I got a message yesterday that my email was in a breach, and they suggested that I change my password. Well, I pay for that service, but it was really helpful, because how would I have known that my email is compromised because of this specific breach? Banks also can work with you, sometimes setting up text messages or see what bank that you bank at, what kind of support and service that they can help to keep you protected as well. Well, I hope you guys learned something wonderful today. Don't be afraid. I like to say, honestly, I do this presentation for specifically older adults, but we are all scammed and we are all can be victims. But like I mentioned, they just target us uniquely different, but also very similarly as well.
Thank you so much, Cassie.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Have a good afternoon. Take care.
Take care.
Thanks.